Israel's parliament has voted to pass legislation banning the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency from operating within Israel and occupied East Jerusalem, accusing the organization of colluding with Hamas in Gaza. Contact between UNRWA employees and Israeli officials will be banned within 3 months, severely limiting the agency's ability to operate in Gaza and the Israeli-occupied West Bank. We have details in this report.
The US and the UK have expressed serious concern about the move. US State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller urged Israel to reconsider the ban.
A critical, important role in delivering humanitarian assistance to civilians that need it in Gaza. That's not the only role they play. They play an important role providing services to Palestinians in the West Bank and throughout the region as well. But they really play an irreplaceable role right now in Gaza, where they are on the front lines getting humanitarian assistance to the people they need it. There's nobody that can replace them right now in the middle of the crisis. So we continue to urge the government of Israel to pause the implementation of this legislation. We urge them not to pass it at all. And we will consider next steps based on what happens in the days ahead.
UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said the laws risk making UNRWA's essential work for Palestinians impossible, jeopardizing the entire international humanitarian response in Gaza. UN Chief Antonio Guterres said the move would have devastating consequences for Palestinian refugees. Meanwhile, Israel says UNRWA staff have colluded with Hamas in Gaza and claimed 19 UNRWA workers took part in the Hamas attacks of 7th October 2023. The UN investigated Israel's claim and fired 9 of those accused, but it said Israel had not provided evidence for broader allegations. UNRWA insists that dealings with Hamas are purely to enable the agency to do its job. Israel's parliament approved the 2 bills by an overwhelming majority on Monday evening. The new laws will also see UNRWA staff lose their legal immunity within Israel, and the agency's headquarters in East Jerusalem will be closed. UNRWA has for decades provided a range of services and support, including healthcare and education, to millions of Palestinians in Gaza. Since the war broke out last year, the agency's presence on the ground has made it a crucial part of efforts to get humanitarian support to civilians, almost all of whom are dependent on aid for survival. In northern Gaza, where Israeli troops are conducting military operations against Hamas fighters, hundreds of thousands of people are living in increasingly desperate conditions. Many Palestinians believe the Israeli military is implementing a surrender or starve plan in Gaza's north, which would see the first displacement of the estimated 400,000 civilians there to the south, followed by a siege of any remaining Hamas fighters. The Israeli military has denied having such a plan and says it takes steps to minimize civilian casualties, including issuing evacuation orders.
Global Affairs analyst Benga Onifade joins us from London via Zoom to discuss more on this. Good to have you join us, Mr. Onifade. 2 controversial legislations here. First, to ban UNRWA from conducting any activity, and second, designating it a terror group. What is the import of these votes by Israel's parliament?
Good afternoon. I think Israel is, of course, within its right to act accordingly as to how they think, they might feel they deem safe. But at the same time, UNRWA, which was founded by the United States in 1949, they do have a purpose, they do have a mission. They've got to be unbiased. But at the same time, with Israel being surrounded by its enemies, proposed enemies, if I can say, and UNRWA is right there supporting, we're talking about over 2 million displaced Palestinians. So it's a bit of I think it's a bit of a difficult situation. What Israel hasn't particularly done, especially, is they have not provided the real justification for why they did that. I mean, they did provide real justification, but they did not provide the crucial evidence. And of course, there's an overwhelming support, by the parliament when it comes to banning it. And they said they do not want them to function in any capacity whichever way you look at it. So I think it's very difficult. It kind of puts the United Nations, the United Kingdom, the United States in a very difficult situation. They don't know where to be because these are the main allies for Israel. But at the same time, these are the organizations that founded UNRWA. So can they do that? Yes. Can they do it? Can it be implemented? I mean, we've got 90 days for this to be fully implemented anyway. And I think
yes, 90 days, to take effect. And I was wondering if you consider that enough time to convince or pressure Israel to rescind its decision.
I think it's more than enough time. Even though the key focus of America is, of course, on the pending election, and of course with the UK being a new government, is trying to maintain its foothold, grappling with domestic issues at home. But I think the key thing we should be looking at is within that 90 days, who can fill that gap? Because we know, so the attack on the 7th of October last year, 10 times the population, of the entire people casualty is falling casualty, and there has been a lot more. We are now engaging terms like ethnic cleansing. So I think the key thing is no one can do the work on the scale of UNRWA, and who can fill that gap at the moment. What particularly what Israel is trying to do is preventing, this kind of situation. I mean, we haven't seen Israel engage in a deep, long war for this long. Normally, they tend to be sharp and precise, and they tend to move on. But right now, it's taking a lot longer. With a lot more dedication into this thing, and they are trying to prevent future attacks in future. So I think what we need to focus right now is the gaps. Who can fill that gap?
Okay, and finally, Israel has consistently alleged that some of UNRWA's thousands of staff were involved in the October 7th attack, and that they knowingly aimed aid armed groups. What can the UN do to clear its name?
Again, quite difficult. Who can know the area more than the locals? That's often the mistakes the people make. I mean, United Nations can bring in foreigners in terms of the key figures of UNRWA. That might be an alternative, but again, when it comes to serving the locals, you need a lot more locals being involved. And again, also, the locals have got their opinions polarized because, at the end of the day, you've got Israel right there who's attacking you, displacing you constantly. But at the same time, you want to work for your people. But you've got to make sure you have no animosity towards the same people. So it's quite difficult. I'm not sure exactly what Israel can do. You might say, yeah, they could find, a lot more. They could do a lot more checks before they employ the people, but you can't check sentiment. I mean, how could you check that? That makes them between a rock and a hard place.
Okay, then. Global Affairs Analyst Gbenga Nifadi, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on World Now.